All right, checking again, making sure the screen's shared.
Yep.
Okay, sometimes Teams isn't always my fan, so great. Well, thank you all for taking some time to chat with us and our team. We're really excited to share a little bit more about our application and kind of our vision for multi-benefit land repurposing in Sacramento and Amador counties. We already went through introductions, so we'll just kind of keep plugging along. Our proposal area includes the South American and Cosumnes subbasins, mostly in Sacramento County with a little bit of Western Amador County as well. Sloughhouse RCD is a groundwater sustainability agency in both subbasins and have been since developing the GSPs over the last couple of years and this first year or so in implementation. A little bit more about Sloughhouse RCD. Our organization was formed in 1956 and has been working with the local constituents on a variety of different projects over the years, kind of as different needs arise, as local leadership is interested in working in different areas. But since 2016, we've been a groundwater sustainability agency. Our local board felt that this was going to be a very important process to our constituents, to our community, and there's been no doubt about that since then. Since becoming a GSA, I kind of like to say it's kind of made us dust off some of the cobwebs and really start acting like the organization that we want to be to meet this really important requirement. We've worked with the Department of Water Resources and at Stantec to develop a GSP readiness plan that laid out the kind of work we've been doing over the last few years to ensure that we're meeting our legal requirements, that we are being prepared for the big task of implementing those 20-year plans for groundwater sustainability. But in addition to our groundwater work, we are also getting more involved in a variety of other natural resource related areas. We've recently received a CDFA Conservation Ag Planning Grant and have been working with a variety of other partners on just a ton of different projects, a lot of partners here and others. But all of this is to support our mission of serving our diverse constituency within the district to become better stewards of our natural resources through education, outreach, and implementing conservation projects to advance long-term sustainability of natural and working lands. Graphic here shows our layout or our district boundaries, southeast Sacramento County with Amador County line as our border to the east, San Joaquin County line to the south, Highway 99, Grant Line Road on our western and kind of northern borders and just south of Folsom, incorporating close to the majority of the Cosumnes subbasin and a significant portion of the irrigated areas within the South American subbasin. With us, as we went through in our introductions, we're bringing not just Sloughhouse RCD to the table, but a long and deep list of other partners. These partners that we'll hear a little bit more from some of them throughout our presentation today, but they include local groundwater sustainability agencies who've been working on developing and implementing these plans since day one, as well as other local agencies like Regional Sand and Sac Valley Conservancy, who have been working in this space for a long time as well. Additionally, bringing some regional partners like the Freshwater Trust, Ag Innovations, and Zero Foodprint to help elevate the work that we're doing here and bringing in their expertise as well. I have a lot of pride when we see this slide here of just the variety and breadth of partners who have joined us to work on not just this project, but all of our groundwater sustainability and other natural resource related projects. Getting a little bit more into our proposal, our application, we seek to target and deploy nature-based and multi-benefit projects on agricultural lands while retaining maximized productivity in new and integrated ways. Our short list of project types that we hope to work on with these funds include managed aquifer recharge. The Omineshoning-Hartnell Water District has been doing a lot of recharge type projects along the Cosumnes River, and both of the GSPs identify recharge as one of the key projects to reach towards sustainability, and all of our partners have expressed interest in supporting this type of work. Additionally, habitat restoration, folks like Sac Valley Conservancy and the Freshwater Trust bringing their experience in this area, and again, all of our partners dedicated to ensuring that habitat and natural areas are benefiting alongside our agricultural operations and landscapes. Moving on, our project will also tackle regenerative soil health and water use efficiency practices. Partners like Zero Foodprint, their Restore California program is designed to get funding to landowners to implement those projects, making it happen. Additionally, we recognize that solar, there's a huge demand for solar, and especially in a county with SMUD, the Sacramento Municipal Utilities District, that has really aggressive and solar goals. We know it's going to happen here in the county, and wanting to ensure that it's done right, for a lack of better terms, that it's in the appropriate places, and that other multi-benefit projects are added into those efforts to have that land be as productive as possible while fitting in and addressing these natural resource concerns. Finally, we plan to look at projects that benefit regional flood control, water supply, and water quality. This year, it has really opened up a lot of folks' eyes on just how much capacity our local streams and rivers can have when we get these, quite literally deadly flows through our subbasins, through our county, and wanting to come up with plans to address that as much as possible in the future, and not just address the risk, but turn it into a positive, and how we capture that and slow that water down and replenish our aquifers. And then additionally, throughout the county, we have a relatively large community of domestic well owners and shallow well owners, and water supply and water quality are of utmost importance there. But to kind of sum up our full vision for the project, really like this line from our application. We aim to incorporate agricultural land as part of the solution to the challenges of farming in a water-limited environment, so that these operations remain viable and vibrant while helping to build durable environmental and agricultural resilience. As we develop our multi-benefit land repurposing plan through this program, we anticipate integrating a variety of other local plans and efforts. We've included a short list here. This short list, though, captures tons of hours and resources and thought into figuring out what resource concerns we're trying to address here in our subbasins. And we hope to use these as part of our efforts to ensure that we're supporting our partners in a holistic way, not necessarily creating a new program, a new burden, but how we connect the dots and utilize the multi-benefit land repurposing program as a catalyst to see some serious progress towards the implementation of these efforts. Multi-benefit land repurposing is included as a project in the Cosumnes subbasin, and as I mentioned, recharge is included in both GSPs, as well as a variety of the other related kind of projects associated with our application. And then I'm thinking I'm going to pass this over to Dave, Eric, or
I'll take this one. Yeah, so for our projects, and so as we develop or as we go through the program, kind of as Austin described, we're taking a lot of these plans into account to make sure that all of our projects have a wide variety of benefits, as you know, as the game of the program. So we're aiming to recharge our local aquifers, and at the same time, we want to provide water security for all of the residents within the service or within our project area. And then also looking to make sure we have ancillary benefits to support our groundwater dependent ecosystems and to help improve drought risk for all of our agricultural farmers. And then regenerative soil practices can help kind of retain that water efficiency as well. And as we do this, we're taking into account all of these plans for carbon sequestration. And our goal is to be able to, with all the partners together, build collaborative targets that we're aiming for and kind of assess the benefits needed, and then take an analytical approach down to a field level to build our portfolio of projects where we're getting maximum uplift, making sure that the projects we're putting on the ground will provide the most benefit, for the least cost to each of these project areas. So just really trying to make sure we take a very thoughtful approach into what projects are going where and how they can have the best impact for the communities.
Thanks, Dave. I'm gonna toss this over to Stephen.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. This is this image you're seeing represents some of the representative monitoring wells. We have between the two sub-basins, 72 different monitoring wells that are monitored by directly by the GSAs. 19 of those are specifically in those interconnected surface water and shallow surface water areas, or shallow groundwater areas, I should say. Additionally, we do pull any publicly available groundwater data, whether that's water quality or water levels. That all gets collected as well each year and put into our model. Some of the things we're looking at that we do is make sure we're tracking in all of the land use changes. We then go into different crop types and check how many acres we've got of each crop type. And one of the things we're looking at is locally sourced ET monitoring. So having weather stations out in these fields that we can get really good evapotranspiration rates and really nail down exactly field by field, crop by crop, how much water is being used. One of the things I think that I'm most proud of is the data sharing that goes on. We've been now meeting as a couple different agencies for quite a while now, since Sigma has gone through, and we share a hydraulic model between the North American, the South American, and the Cosumnes rivers, Cosumnes subbasins. And with that, we've got this really well-established flow of data between all of the different subbasins. And then with OHWD and SRCD being GSAs in the South American and the Cosumnes, it just really adds even more to making sure that we're all speaking the same language when we're collecting and sharing data. And I think it's one of the better parts of what we've already been able to establish, and I think it's going to serve us well as we continue. And I believe I am handing that to Brittany.
Yes, thank you. So in terms of what we will do to engage our community, we are working with local partners who are deeply rooted in the rural agricultural areas of Sacramento County, and we will build upon the guidance in the community and grower engagement in multi-benefit land repurposing guide. As we continue to develop our outreach and engagement for this program, we will follow best practices as outlined in the EDF guide, such as creating and maintaining public and accessible websites and email updates, providing translation services for written and verbal communication, and through holding regular meetings with the public and growers. And I'm actually going to pass this back off to Stephen, who will share some of the local outreach and current engagement work we've recently accomplished.
Great, thanks. The GSAs in both of these subbasins have been really diligent about their outreach efforts. Since Sigma has started, we've really tried to engage all of the different stakeholders to make sure that we're putting in a plan that is broadly accepted. And so what that looks like is monthly public meetings by each of the GSAs, as well as the joint powers agreements that they're a part of. So like the Casuma's Groundwater Authority, for instance, meets monthly, as well as its various committees. Additionally, there has been workshops that we've put out about land repurposing. We've also done some workshops on the various projects that are in the groundwater sustainability plan so that people understand what is happening. We can receive feedback about the different projects, the different outreach methods that we're using. And this has been going on, like I said, for about 5 years now. And it's something that we're working hard on and something that we know we need to continue to ensure that we have a really good base of understanding so that when we do start, working out here doing these land repurposing projects like that we are going to build on, that we have it really accepted and usable by those people that are here. And we'll hand this over to Terry with Regional SAN.
Great. Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here and also just be part of this great coalition here looking to continue environmental stewardship and agricultural resilience. Harvest Water is a program that Regional SAN is moving forward on. It's part of our environmental stewardship activities for our community. And we have been working with the growers in this area for probably over a decade, really trying to work with them collaboratively to help us move Harvest Water forward and understand what their interests are. So our engagement has been extensive. Our particular project is located between I-5 and Highway 99 and bound by Elk Grove to the north and Twin Cities Road to the south. The project's going to be providing a lot of groundwater elevation restoration activities for the region, and it just will help working with these other entities. Gosh, I'm sorry. The consequences of working from home at times. So sorry about that. Again, I think with our outreach with the farming community and the multiple stakeholders, we can help add value to that as working with these other entities as we're trying to move things forward for groundwater sustainability and agricultural resilience. As I mentioned, just to show you the outreach for our project, this project area is defined in the area with the black border. We've been able to secure, working with all those growers, up to 134 parcels. All of those parcels in green have expressed interest and signed letters of intent to participate in Harvest Water. And we're looking at an irrigation of over 50,000 acre-feet per year of recycled water for those entities. So we are obviously extensively involved in that outreach, and again, think that we can help the team as well as we're trying to expand that environmental sustainability forward. If you could advance the next slide. One of the things that, again, Harvest Water is going to be doing is working with the GSAs. And in fact, Harvest Water is one of the defined projects listed for near-term action for the South American subbasin. So the project will be providing both in lieu recharge. So rather than pumping groundwater, the project will be delivering 32,000 acre-feet per year of recycled water during the typical agricultural irrigation season, and up to an additional 15,000 acre-feet per year during the winter time. And obviously there are other projects that are also listed in the GSP. I know Mike Wakeman's here for OH to talk about that, as well as regional conjunctive use. But again, I think it's a building block. You can see as all these projects are working together, we'll be building that footprint and working collaboratively to be the most efficient. Next slide, please. And I guess just to, again, build on the collaboration and building partnerships with Harvest Water, we've been working with all of the local organizations within our region and the various environmental groups, working with the GSAs, Ducks Unlimited, Environmental Defense Fund, Nature Conservancy. Farm Bureau has been just key component to our efforts, and we look, I think, to build those strengths and those relationships to help with Farm Bureau outreach in other areas. So again, that collaboration is key, and I think facilitating those partnerships will really help as we're moving multi-benefit projects forward. Thank you. Not sure who I'm tossing this to next.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Genevieve will pick up here.
Yes, here we go. Hi, everyone. One of the reasons that we've been brought in is because of our experience in engaging disadvantaged communities. And we know that's a really important part of both the state's priorities and of this program. And so from Ag Innovation's perspective, we always believe that engagement should be robust, it should be transparent, and it should be worthwhile. And worthwhile usually means that it's about listening to what the concerns of and interests are of the communities that you're working with, and then finding ways that really support those interests alongside the interests of the convening group. And so we will be working hard to make that bridge. Some of the ideas that we have are definitely reinforced by what we are seeing in the community engagement guide that was developed by EDF and Self-Help Enterprises. And I think it also comes from our own experience there. So there's a few strategies. One is that we'll make sure that the steering committee will include DAC representatives, people who are of the community and who can share their unique perspective and, you know, reinforce those interests within the overall effort. We will be sure that projects benefiting DAC communities will be prioritized for selection. That's pretty exciting, actually, because I think there's a lot of just multi-benefits, just like what Terry was saying. There's ways that we can support both the efforts of the group, the needs of the whole region, and take advantage of reinforcing both prosperity as well as you know, a better kind of environmental sustainability in those areas, and also ensure viable agriculture moving forward. So there's, you know, lots of opportunities there for that, and we're pretty excited about seeing how that moves forward. We'll also be doing specialized outreach. A lot of times, you know, I don't know, we hear a lot about this term of language justice. So in those moments when we really want to ensure that communities are weighing in, we'll make sure that they've got the way, you know, the best way to weigh in. So whether that's simultaneous interpretation or perhaps, you know, some additional support and understanding what's happening, we'll go the extra mile to make sure that those things happen. You know, we enjoy this part of what we do. I think the other piece that is important is that we have this incredible network. I mean, just on this call, you can see this is an incredible network of people who are already doing the work. They're doing the outreach. And part of what we have said is that this is an opportunity to optimize those efforts, to ensure that people are working together across the region, that they take advantage of the resources and thinking and, you know, kind of evolution that would happen as part of this process. That this network that's inherent within this grant process is actually reinforced, and that there's ways that we can help all of us be more strategic. So our plan has been that we would you know, look for ways that we can support as a unit, look for ways that we can support individual areas and geographies more specifically, and then work with you know, the various entities that are here in a way that takes advantage of, you know, the great resources and capacity that they already have. So it's kind of a shoring up and a reinforcement that is our strategy. I think, Austin, back to you.
Brittany's going to take this slide.
I'll take over. Thank you, Genevieve. So as we do this great work, we want to ensure that we're sharing our successes and telling our story. And we can do this by engaging the RCD network through the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts and through the GRAC networks. Tools that we develop will be made publicly available to a wide audience. We will ensure we are working with regional partners such as the Freshwater Trust and Zero Foodprint to spread our vision. And we will utilize our annual project highlights and final grant updates to tell our story to other parts of the state so that we may provide a progress report as we continue this work. I'm actually going to hand it back to Austin so we can discuss budget.
Thanks, Brittany. Just wanted to include our budget numbers from our application. Won't spend much time on this since you have that information, but one of our key takeaways that we wanted to highlight was that the way we've structured our budget, approximately 2/3 of the funding going towards implementation of projects, wanting to see that the majority of the funds are resulting in those benefits that, like Dave was speaking to earlier. In addition to the funding we're requesting from the Department of Conservation, we're augmenting a lot of support and in-kind contributions from our partners, included those numbers here. I think this is proof that the application we put together and the project we hope to undergo is aligned with what we all are already really dedicated to. In addition to this already identified in-kind support, Sloughhouse, RCD, the GSAs, and all of the partners are exploring a variety of different fundings to augment this work as well. Both subbasins have applied for the Department of Water Resources Sigma implementation grants, both of which speak to different projects that are related to this proposal. And again, I envision that this support from the Department of Conservation will serve as a catalyst to identifying additional funding and building our capacity to continue to seek out funding to advance these projects. And to ensure that our project dollars are going to be spent wisely and put to good use, we plan on forming a steering committee consisting of GSA representatives, local groundwater users, and disadvantaged community members / representatives who will be supported by our partners here, from technical and local experience, and planning on having Ag Innovations be our facilitator to ensure that we're all working together and staying true to this vision that we've outlined here. And that's our presentation. Again, just wanting to highlight that this has been a really phenomenal opportunity for us to work with not just our GSA partners, but this long and growing list of other partners who have that we've either worked with it before or new relationships that we're building, and just really excited to see what we can do when we work together.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. That was a great presentation. At this point, I wanted to open it up to reviewers to see if you had any questions.
I do. Let me go ahead and start that. You mentioned that the steering committee will include DAC representatives. How will those representatives be selected?
We plan to work with local organizations and groups that are already plugged into those communities to ensure that we are drafting our process to be very mindful of how to engage with it appropriately. Genevieve kind of spoke to that. Our thought right now is kind of one person from each of those different entities / communities that I mentioned. And yeah, Genevieve, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a pretty robust representation. So, we'd be looking for, it's a little bit dependent on how big the steering committee, but 30% is a great indicator of like, okay, we've got enough for a cohort that would feel like they could speak to one another, they could talk to each other about what is important. They could help make the connection between the issues that the convening group would be talking about and that they may or may not have like a relationship with. I think that's the hardest part, is making sure that community members who are invited in feel like they can make a meaningful contribution, that they've got the information and the confidence to like bring, their unique perspective. The other thing that's really exciting about this, I mean, this is all about ag, and there's some amazing BIPOC farmers that are in the area. And I actually think that those are the folks that I would be recommending that we would bring into this, because they'll already be, it'll be an opportunity to reinforce the relationships to the communities that they're a part of, and to ensure that we're really benefiting those folks. We've had a lot of conversations around kind of the vulnerabilities that happen with climate change. And what we know is that in those moments, it's, BIPOC farmers and disadvantaged farmers are going to be the ones that erode, kind of silently leave the area, maybe don't lease the land again, or, kind of lose their acreage. And we really don't want that to happen. And so this is a really great way to stack a lot of functions, bring them in, reinforce, the conditions under which they can thrive, and that will help all the rest of the community thrive alongside them.
Okay, thank you. I have another sort of DAC related question. So let's see, it looks like the projects that have the greatest benefit to DAC communities will be prioritized. How will that be weighted? How will that be determined?
We intend to develop a scorecard of sort to bring in the disadvantaged community benefits, the alignment with the groundwater sustainability plans, and a few of those other pieces that we mentioned, to ensure that each project that is brought forward for funding, before they even get to us, making it clear that those are the priorities that we have in mind. And the majority of the identified disadvantaged communities in our subbasins tend to be in one portion of the subbasin. So we are having some discussions on how we ensure that we're not focusing all of our projects in just one area, but at the same time looking also at the benefits. Not just project doesn't necessarily have to be in that area. We know that groundwater and other natural resources don't care about the boundaries we all create. It kind of does what it will do, and help using our monitoring network to kind of help inform those benefits. But it all starts with when we are laying out that process to start putting projects in the funding pipeline, that the disadvantaged community benefits is included right along with the alignment with the GSP and groundwater related goals and other related goals. Eric, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, if I could. So one of the I think the unique parts of this application is that we're using some geospatial analytics that are targeting specific kinds of farms. So when I think about on the South American subbasin side, there's a lot of Hmong and other Southeast Asian populations that are growing very small plots, and those people get overlooked in every single survey, and they're not actively engaged by county resources. They're historically underserved from the Natural Resources Conservation Service perspective. So when we look at the individual fields, which Dave had mentioned earlier, we're targeting those fields where the smallholders are. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be necessarily an ethnic minority out here, but there are also people who are at risk from being dewatered at the shallow groundwater. So one of the things actually that Austin is pioneering here is we're creating a small group of people to help inform us about the wells that are most at risk, the people who suffered from the last drought, the people who started to see injury from the most recent drought. So the people who are potentially negatively impacted by some of the proposed changes in land management, we want to make sure that we have a better understanding of what the risks that they believe that they're facing, and also add the scientific and technical side to this. So it's not just a kind of a monotonic approach. We're actually going to try to stratify all the data that are available, and we're using an approach that Community Alliance for Family Farms has tried to pioneer at the state level, which is how do you identify the smalls and the folks most at risk from the land management changes that are proposed under certain kinds of repurposing. How do you make sure that those people aren't the first people injured, and then those are the people who have the lowest capacity and the least voice in the community? So we're trying to use analytics as a tool to be able to target, amplify, and then be able to recruit them into the program.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And just to add on to that too a little bit, each sub-basin has a form of kind of a citizen community group that provides feedback on our work, and in the Cosumnes Subbasin, that's the Citizen Advisory Committee, and in the South American Subbasin, it's the Domestic Well Advisory Group, and through all of our GSA and GSP related work, wanting to utilize those existing efforts and networks to help us better understand where those specific needs are, and really get a better sense of our communities, kind of break down that local government barrier that we all have.
Thank you. I've got one more question, not related to DACs. I think maybe Dave Richardson, maybe he'll be able to weigh in on this. So I'm curious on, do you have an environmental document already adopted or in draft that would support the various projects that you guys are proposing with this funding?
Yeah, thank you, Krista. I will take part of that, and I will defer to Mike and others to support. For harvest water, we do have an environmental document. It's a CEQA document, programmatic EIR, and then project-specific environmental documents, addenda that support that. So that covers that Arkansas-shaped piece of property in the southwestern corner of our project area, as well as the South American Subbasin. And then when you move up gradient into the Sloughhouse and Omichemnee-Hartnell Water District, that would be the geographic areas that Mike and Austin could address.
Yeah, Eric or Mike, would either of you like to speak to our hopes and visions there?
Hopes and visions there. Yeah, so we do. I'll start off, maybe, and then Eric can follow. What we do have for our individual project there, we done through all the CEQA and EIR analysis, of course, and then we obtained our a water permit through the State Water Board for our 5-year temporary here just this year. So we have that ongoing, and then we'll be doing ongoing analysis of our specific project. But I think one of the things that, and Eric can jump in here too, that we are looking at, and in dealing with all the different projects up and down the river, is looking to do maybe one larger problematic EIR on the whole river and include a lot of our projects in there. And we think that would be very good for not only Sloughhouse, but for us in OH, for a harvest water project, if they ever need to do expansion on their projects, and stuff that Sac Valley Conservancy is looking to do. So the idea, and also even some of the flood control stuff with RD 800, they're looking to do some flood control projects, and we're looking to do some coordination with them on doing some setback levies and those type of things. So the idea is to be able to do a larger programmatic EIR through the whole area and address a lot of the projects within that. And so that's why some of the funding, I think, that we threw in there was to give us the funding to be able to do that type of project.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Just briefly add to that. So what Mike is articulating is that there's some incredible structural inefficiencies with permitting. And some of those permit requirements are absolutely critical for protection of human health and the environment, but some are procedural. And so one of the opportunities that this group, this coalition really has, is that we're formed of several joint powers agreement agencies, and we have tremendous support from the counties. And so our thought is, let's work together. Let's solve the lead agency issue with the counties, and that we can have a single programmatic EIR with some project level specifications that we can implement quickly. But to avoid kind of that problem where every one of these different opportunities is stovepipe. So as we heard about earlier, this area floods at 62,000 cubic feet per second. That's like 6 times more than the Colorado River's flowing right now. That flood impact is treated as a different problem. As Austin identified, it's a managed aquifer recharge benefit to us, but none of these things are lined up. And by thinking about this using the DOC's funding is to integrate that as have a recharge plan, a flood safety plan, a restoration plan, an agricultural efficiency and optimization plan, all built in together so that all the stakeholders are talking. And that's something that we've seen as a chronic problem. One of the things that we hope to do with this grant is to overcome that and provide it as a model for the rest of the state. We've been talking with folks over in the Solano subbasin about applying these the same sort of ideas. They're all very excited about it, but they lack the capacity and the coordination that this group already has. And so we're hoping to use this as an illustration for other places.
Thank you very much.
All right. I see Shauna's hand.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So you noted in your application that this would not be permanent land repurposing or permanent following or land repurposing. And I'm curious how you plan to achieve the minimum 10-year benefits from your projects implemented using this funding.
To ensure that these projects are successful and not just a 1-year opportunity, I think it tying everything back to our GSP as kind of the guiding documents for the region and ensuring that the reporting and tracking through that process is outlined there, and building that into one of our prepared questions that you all had is kind of what help we need from the state to get started. Is better understanding like how we set up those projects and set the requirements and kind of stumbling over my words here, apologies, but I do see Stephen, maybe you want to jump in and add some more.
Yeah, I think from the numbers side of things, our goals set forward in both of the GSPs, the South American and the Casumnes, are informed by the model and historical and future projected conditions. And so I know in the Casumnes we have very specific land repurposing goals and water conservation goals that are informed by these different climate scenarios, by groundwater trend levels, and by the practices themselves. And so we can input information into those and say, okay, if we do X amount of land repurposing and switch from a crop that uses 4 acre-feet down to 2 acre-feet, here's the benefits we're going to see under these different climate scenarios, and here's how long we'll see those benefits. And so we can really start to capture specifics of interim goals that we need to hit as we're looking at building out these projects.
Mike, you wanted that on?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the projects we're looking at are long-term projects too. I mean, they're not single-year projects. Like our groundwater recharge project that we're doing, ours are, we got a 10-year lease on the property now as it is, and then plus we're going to get we're looking to get permanent water rights off of that. Some of the setback levies we're looking at would be permanent setback levies that allow the lands to flood during that winter time when we have those high waters. And then after it runs off, then the guys could go back in and plant, their annual crops in there. So I mean, the projects we're looking at are not just temporary. I mean, we're looking at long-term structural fixes along the Casumnes River to address both water supply and flooding issues.
Yeah, and as we, Stephen earlier in the presentation had talked about our monitoring efforts, kind of current, but in our Department of Water Resource grant applications, and I identified throughout our GSPs is making sure that we are continuing to build out that network so that each year we have systems in place to be able to make sure what we're saying is happening is actually happening, and being able to prove that.
At the risk of piling on too many times, I'll just say with Harvest Water, we're assigning very, very, very long-term agreements with resource agencies to assure our benefits. So greater than 50 years. And then we're setting up easements and contracts with the farmers that are going to be either in perpetuity or very, very long-term, matching our commitments. So it's certainly, at least in the Harvest Water area, that's where we're committed. And then I'm sure up the watershed, we're going to be looking at the easements and contracts to assure that minimum, the 10-year benefits, Shauna, that you referred to, and many years beyond that.
Great. And then the other question that I had was, your budget looks like it has about $3 million allocated for project implementation. The funding does require that a majority of the funding goes specifically to project implementation. So if awarded funding, you would need to adjust your budget to shift additional funds into the implementation side of things. Would you be open to reworking your budget to meet this requirement if awarded funding?
Yes, absolutely.
That's it for me.
All right. Cassidy, Cassidy, do you have any questions? I thought I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I raised my hand because I had a clarifying question just as it relates to the fallowing of land. I think the presentation today in the application stated that
I think we're
Cassidy, you're cutting out.
Part of it, but there is also
I think we have a Wi-Fi
potential
issue.
for solar installation. Let's see, did that help at all?
I think you maybe started coming in clear there at the end, but didn't catch any of the question.
So let's go again. I think with camera off, you'll be better.
Okay. So mainly just clarifying on the land fallowing concept, I believe.
Yeah, I think we have I think it's going to be tough.
Asking for.
Would it be possible to send the question, put the question in the chat? That way we can.
Question about fallowing, maybe solar, but yeah, didn't get enough there.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to do while we're figuring this out, just to do a little bit of a time check. We're scheduled to go until 4:45. I can stay until 5 and just keep hopefully others can if there are more questions. I do have some questions to ask, but I wanted to just ask hopefully this is an answerable question, but one of the strengths of your application is the coalition and the fact that you're doing work right now. This isn't all what you will do. This is like you're on a path, a trajectory, and the grant, the way I read this is the grant is coming in to help you expand, accelerate, improve that path that you're on right now. Hopefully that's interpretation is right. So I guess what I wanted to know is like, where in that path you're on, if you didn't receive what would be the gap between with this grant, how things would look 20 years from now or 10 years, whatever the time frame, versus the current path you're on? Like, what does this grant really like put attention to that may fall off? Where does it expand things that where it's really important that may not get there, may reach different, I don't know, like just trying to get the delta on the two scenarios.
Yeah, that's a great question. I maybe to a default, I'm a little bit of an optimist and believe that even if this opportunity didn't come through for us, we'd still be reaching our goals. However, I think what this opportunity specifically really helps all of us do is bring us all together and be more unified. We've been, we talked several times about our coalition that we've built here, and I know the partnerships and the great success there. But I think the way that your program is structured to provide funding for partner capacity needs, for outreach and engagement, for every step along the process is exactly what we need. We have identified our goals through the GSP, through these other programs and plans. But if we had to kind of piecemeal it all together, we're not going to be as successful. I use the term as a catalyst to kind of bring it all together. Mike, please.
Yeah, and I'd even put a year figure on it. I would say it'd put us 5 years back. I mean, if I look at things, how long it takes us to do even just the smaller projects. I mean, my recharge project took us 8 years to get into place, and then harvest water. How long we've been working on that, you guys? I think everybody on this call has worked on harvest water at some point in time.
Yeah, it's been well over a decade.
So I mean, these things take a long time and a lot of money to get put together, and I think with this area there is a lack of funding. We don't have the large water districts. As you do down in the valley. They're a smaller district or a smaller community. My budget, prior to implementing Sigma was $100,000 a year at Omochoni Heart and El Water District. I mean, I had to go out looking for partners. That's why I joined up with SAFCA. That's why, we've joined up together to try to get some of these things done, as we are a smaller community. So if we don't get this type of funding, yeah, we'll move on to the next funding to try to grab. But, I'd say it put us probably 5 years back, to be honest. So.
Yeah, and I 5 years, I think that's a pretty solid number. For example, in the Cosumnes Subbasin GSP, the first 5 years of our plan does not really assume a lot of big projects being built out, because we didn't have funding sources identified to really advance those. And with this kicking in, by the time our 5-year update comes around, we're going to be significantly further ahead towards our goals. And I think that's really important, because preaching to the choir here, our natural resource related concerns are going to get more difficult, not less difficult to address. So if we can get an earlier jump on it, we're going to be significantly more successful.
I appreciate you guys answering that abstract question and staying optimistic. Well, it's a tough one. Why don't I jump to the scripted questions? We can just reference some of these you've already given really complete answers to, so we can, where we want to, we can reference your answers and just see if you want to add anything else. So the first one we didn't really get into, and I think it's a really important one when you're looking at the role of a block grantee and kind of the role of leading a big program like this. So what is your fiscal and administrative capacity to manage this grant? What controls do you have in place to ensure that grant dollars are spent efficiently and managed responsibly?
Yeah, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, the Sloughhouse RCD has, for the last several years, been really focused on building our capacity and figuring out what we need to do to be a strong partner in this work. The board has been really dedicated to adopting the policies to guide our work, to doing the planning, to have a long-term vision. This last summer, we finished our first 5-year plan in about a decade or so. And I mentioned the work that we did with the Department of Water Resources, Facilitation Support Services, and Stantec to get very serious about understanding what is required to do these things. And then since then, we've been putting some of that into play, of looking at what grants are aligned with our vision and coming up with plans to successfully execute them. And when I started with the district just 4 years ago, we were a team of a half-time person, and now we're a team of 2. And the board has the mindset that we still need to continue to grow to really step up to that challenge and taking it very seriously. Though we currently have a contract with the California Special Districts Association. Rick Woods, their CFO, who has for the last year been working with Brittany and I to take a look at all of our financial processes and how we are moving money from account to account and informing the board and informing the public, and how we make sure that we have just like the software and kind of reporting processes in place to do this, and also providing the training for us to really be able to dive deep into that. And I think our success there has been reflected through the Cosumnes Groundwater Authority asking us to play a significant role in the administration of that agency. So not only are we doing this process through Sloughhouse, but kind of applying it to another public agency. And also over the last year plus that we've been thinking about this big grant opportunity and the DWR grants, thinking through like what's the next step for our staffing needs. And as all these pieces come together, we'll be making those decisions on like, do we need to strengthen our financial management skills, our outreach skills and capacity by bringing in additional support as needed. But again, kind of through all of that, we're a public agency, and our board is in our district, our team is very dedicated to being transparent and open and communicating how we do our work and where the funding comes from.
All right.
Yeah, Eric, I know you want to jump in, but I just talked about Sloughhouse, how selfish of me. I think that what also gives me huge faith in our ability is being able to work with folks like Regional SAN, who has the experience of managing millions and millions of dollars in projects, and our other GSA partners who are going through this well. I talk with these folks daily and have learned so much from them, and know that with this good cohort behind us, we'll be able to do it. Erica, I'm hoping that's what you're wanting to chime in. Anything else though? Yeah, great, thanks.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Question number 2. Describe the partnerships and collaborations you've built or plan to build to support your work, and how you will utilize those connections to plan, develop, and implement land repurposing projects throughout your region. How will each partner contribute to the work conducted under the grant? I mean, I will say in your presentation, you touched on the coalitions, and I think through different answers, you've touched on the different kind of roles and focuses. So I would say reference the prior responses, but do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what I would want to add is, we, or at least I started thinking about this program about a year and a half ago when round 1 solicitation opened up. And, last year we worked closely with the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts on their proposal. And while the application has transformed into what we are now, that's a huge partnership that has added a ton of value to the work that this coalition has already done. Still communicating about monthly or every other month with the RCDs in those other counties on that proposal to continue to develop this shared vision of how we're approaching multi-benefit land repurposing. And then additionally, the Regional SAN application, many of us were on kind of that proposal team as well. And similarly, that was a fantastic opportunity to start thinking about like what Eric had and Mike had talked about of kind of programmatic EIR and how we are thinking locally. The CARCD application was a little bit larger region, but kind of both those efforts have given birth to this effort of all of us here locally, really focusing in on our mission and how they're interconnected and building that awareness, just frankly, of like what everyone is doing and what they're interested and excited about. yeah, we touched on different aspects of some of the different partners here. And so I won't waste more of our time on that, but any other partners want to add into that?
Seeing and oh. Okay.
I'll just say one more thing. Sorry. I just think that this group presents a really important network for working in the area, and it's needed. And will actually there will be a ripple effect in other places. And so this grant provides us the opportunity to reinforce better working relationships, to get to know each other's modus operandi, and to be able to eventually, I hope, extend that same understanding to other entities that aren't involved directly in the grant.
Okay. Question number 3. The primary goal of the program is to prioritize benefits to disadvantaged communities. Sorry, my intonation was off. To prioritize benefits to disadvantaged communities, period. How have you engaged with disadvantaged communities in your region in the past? How do you intend to engage and collaborate with disadvantaged communities through your grant work? So I think you gave a really thorough answer on how you plan to engage with the communities. I would like to hear a little bit more of how you have engaged with them in the past through your current work. I think I heard, we talked a little bit about tenant farmers and BIPOC farmers, things like that. But what else do you have to add to the prior responses?
Yeah, through the development of the GSP and the public outreach meetings that we've done since then, we've seen a lot of success in kind of following some of those best practices that the EDF guide and other public outreach guides have of, meeting time and place, so important. A lunchtime meeting doesn't work for everybody. Additionally, we've had some frank conversations on language services and how to fill in some of those gaps there. Additionally, like providing in person, through the pandemic, everyone struggled a lot with outreach and engagement, but figuring out how to make it work for people who need to maybe meet with you in person, or maybe the virtual does work, kind of taking a serious look on who are you trying to reach out to, and are they going to be available at that time, or are you reaching them in a way that that they're going to be able to receive that information. Terry, you had talked a bit about your outreach with some of the landowners in the harvest water area. Is there anything else that you'd like to add on your experience?
Yeah, I think our focus has really been with some of the growers and landowners in that area. As we move forward with implementation of harvest water, there's going to be education and training on how to use that recycled water. So again, I think we'll be getting into some of the field workers and what's the best way to educate them on for harvest water with respect to recycled water. But I think that opens the door as well to expand some of that education as we move forward. But specifically, we probably haven't at this point gotten into some of the decks.
Other partners, anything else to share on your organization's experiences?
I think so this is Genevieve from Ag Innovations. I think one of the things that we've learned from our experience in working, we actually lead environmental justice outreach around the Delta Conveyance Project. And so working in a rural community like that, first of all, we are neutral on the project and yet have to be able to educate folks on what they need to understand about the project and how they can be involved. And so hitting the right amount of information in the right places and creating a number of different points of contact for them, I think has been some of the things that we've seen that have worked well in that. And showing up consistently in the places that they're at, whether it's, Cinco de Mayo this Friday, or, other, like in Elk Grove, we've spent a lot of time working with the Chinese and Asian community there. And so those relationships translate. And I don't think, certainly there's an agricultural community that, is that we will need to reach, but we also have to see them as part of their whole community. They're in their life. And so there's many ways to reach the people that we are trying to reach. And sometimes it's not as direct. It has to be, seeing them in the places that they are, the places that they frequent, the lives that they lead. And so I think that's been a really important part of our learning around that. And we'll definitely be applying that learning to everything that we do here. And then I think we have a lot of folks that really understand how to find people who are working in agriculture. And so we'll be using that to our advantage. They know where those gathering places are. They know who shows up and who doesn't. And I think we'll be having a lot of conversations around what are the gaps that we see and how do we find them, whether it's showing up at their fruit stand or showing up at their, Lions Club meeting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's great. So it sounds like to me you've had some processes that you've led that you feel like you've had good success with outreach, and you have led other processes with your partners outside that have been, but there are also some areas where you think there's room for improvement, which your prior responses give guidance on how you're going to improve those.
Well, and a grant like this is a capacity building grant. So like us being really clear about how to build that capacity, I think is really important.
Yep. Okay. Last question, two-parter. So these grants are intended to be partnerships between the state and the regional block grant recipients. As part of the grant, you'll attend monthly meetings with the department and the statewide support entity, which it sounds like you're familiar with, to ensure that you are supported in your work. That's kind of like a disclaimer. So you'll attend these meetings. They've been great meetings, by the way, just like opportunities to do webinars on shared kind of subjects that there's shared need around, and kind of time to do peer-to-peer learning with other grantees that are trying to figure out these new things on the fly like everyone else. So question number one, if you were receiving funding, what immediate support would you need from the department or the statewide support entity to begin your work?
Yeah, I think we need to better understand the process, the kind of project pipeline process of how we elevate the different work that we want to do. As we articulated, there's a lot of different projects that we're all excited to move forward on, and so how do we work with the state to get the funding directed to those? And it's my understanding there's a multi-department kind of review team, panel, what have you, to explore those. So that's I know one of the bigger questions that I have of how we line out kind of 4 years of projects and efforts in a systematic way.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. And then the last one is, what additional support do you envision needing kind of as your program progresses? So I mean, that response isn't just that day one. I mean, that sounds like something to do and is continuous. Anything though you see where bringing in expertise from the support entity, from the departments or other partners would be helpful as we go?
Stephen, Julian, you had elevated a question to me. Do you want to ask that now?
Yeah, I think this is great. One of the things that we're looking at doing as we continue our outreach efforts and continue kind of the Sigma process is we want to kind of shift the narrative that has inadvertently happened. Ag is often seen as the bad guy, right? They use most of the water in the state, and they're the ones behind all of the problems. And I think we can do something about that, right? We can change those perceptions from ag's not the bad guy. You know, we want people to love what they're doing, and they're going to go make a difference and face climate change head on and face the water crisis head on. And I think that's something that goes from both sides, is the outside perception, you know, getting people on board. Inside piece is, how do people view themselves? You know, it goes a lot farther when you believe in yourself, that you believe you're here to make a difference, and you're taking something and doing something really positive, instead of viewing yourself as someone that's constantly being attacked by, you know, the media and the urban people who are scary, and big government coming in to tell you what to do. And I think there's a great opportunity for us to shift that narrative and shift that perspective of how ag operates in the county.
Yeah. And I think you know, that's something where you'll find common ground with the other grantees and participants and partners of the other programs that are running. So thanks for that. All right. Well, we are 3 minutes over time. So respecting this afternoon, any other comments, questions, statements before we sign out?
I had one. I'm thinking, I'm trying to channel what I believe Cassidy was trying to ask. So in this watershed, large-scale repurposing is not really viewed as a solution to the problems. It's more, how do we think about our watershed and land use more effectively? And then once we've exhausted those things, then, you know, given various climate change scenarios, what are the opportunities available to us? What are the social and economic impacts to our community from each of those different choices? And that's one of the things that we're looking at as part of our optimization effort, is every one of those choices has an impact, whether it's an impact to the county's bottom line, whether it's an impact to processors of certain kind of equipment, whether there's a substantive impact or benefit to groundwater without impacting groundwater dependent ecosystems, right? So you can cut off alfalfa all day long, and you can have massive environmental impacts to fish, wildlife, birds, and groundwater dependent ecosystems, or you can be really thoughtful, and that's the attempt that we're proposing here, is you look at the landscape and you see where the benefits, opportunities, and risks are with that. And I think that's a little bit of a novelty here. But to her question, I think we're soft pedaling fallowing because it's not necessarily socially acceptable. We don't know that we need that tool per se here. But one thing that's in that fallowing spectrum that I think is really important to recognize is, well, we identified agrivoltaics as one of the potential tools that we'd like to exercise and test out here. And by default, that has taking land out of production for the panels themselves and the footprint of those panels. And so we want to look at what the real local impacts are, the individualized impacts are, with our local land managers, and show them how this could be done. You have to raise the panels up higher. There's a higher cost for raising those panels up. You have to protect the wiring. You have to be near a substation. You know, all those are factors that we want to look at and exercise and get some substantive development around that. But there's also some opportunities. Dr. Sandoval Solis of UC Davis has come to the trust and asked, is there a way that we can use those solar panels and use the different kinds of grazing practices underneath those solar panels, but also think about something like agave, where you need water just for that first year of growth, and then for the next 4 years until it's ready, or 5 years till it's ready to harvest, you're not adding water during that period. So you're not fallowing in the traditional sense. You're not just cutting that water off, but you're fallowing more in the sense of thinking more about the agronomic side of crop production and taking advantage of the shading for say cattle in that particular instance. How do you actually manage this system in a way that gets you to the outcome you want, which is groundwater sustainability, without having massive economic or environmental impacts? And so that's one of the things that we want to look at here. So we're not calling that fallowing, but I think by default it has some elements of fallowing associated with it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And agrivoltaics are very popular right now in the legislature, and I think there's a there's a bill that has the Energy Commission looking at a lot of these questions with us consulting. So this could help us achieve the goal of that bill if we go there. So, all right, I want to wrap it up. Really impressive meeting, impressive coalition. I will take Brittany's stoic cat wrangling during this meeting as a really positive sign that you guys can keep this coalition intact.
Thank you so much. Here he is again.
Yeah, thank you so much to your
all right.
team. And this has been a really fantastic opportunity for all of us to put our minds together. And Cassidy, I see that you got some clarification from Eric's question or answer, but if there is any other remaining questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to chatting more.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
All.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.